Welcome to the first episode of an eight-part series from the A Film by podcast, available only on our Patreon page. You know, one thing we loved about renting videos from Blockbuster or buying them from Suncoast or Sam Goody was the shelf space dedicated to staff picks. These five recommendations provided by the quote unquote experts of the store, they did more than serve to broaden your cinematic palette. They also offered some insight into the minds of the movie geeks and gods that stocked those shelves and simply answered you with a sly smile or roll of the eyes when you asked the question, "Hey, is this any good?" So now you know what we're doing. We are here with the voice of reason herself, Amber Lewis. A little bit about her work history. Discovered by the Docking Bay 77 podcast, stolen by the Film by podcast. Uh, she
Borrowed.
made her debut,
Borrowed
borrowed.
without permission, but with every intention of giving it
Hey,
back.
I no intention. I on several occasions I said this is your new co-anchor. This is the person that should be on every episode. And when it didn't happen, I was like, okay, well,
And now she's
no.
yours.
Now now she belongs with a film by. Uh, Made your debut on the 1986 series once we moved to Patreon for the lost episodes, those extra 20.
Yes.
Yeah. And since then you've actually been a co-host on a film by. You've led a film by. You've hosted it yourself. So welcome, Amber Lewis.
Thank you.
Yeah. And your
I'm
favorite
excited to do
director,
this.
yeah, favorite director, Christopher Nolan.
Yes, the
Everyone's like,
maestro.
yeah, everyone's like Steven Spielberg, Steven Spielberg, Steven Spielberg. Amber says, yeah, he's good, but Christopher Nolan is the maestro. So, yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Amber, you made some staff picks. I'd like to talk about them today. And
Yes.
here's what we're going to do. I asked you, sight unseen, I said, choose five movies. We're going to briefly chat about each five. These are your staff picks, your recommendations for our listeners to check out. When we're done talking about these five, I'm going to I'm playing detective, by the way. I'm going to try and figure out what groups these five together. If or do they group somehow? What I'm going to try and get in your mind and figure out why you picked these five. Uh, you might just be like, "Hey, first five I thought about," or it might be there might be something I think there's something connecting these five.
Oh, there
So
definitely is.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you what I think. But let's kick things off with your first film from 2006, The Illusionist, a romantic period mystery directed by Neil Berger, starring Edward Norton, Jessica Biel, and Paul Giamatti. Amber, those are some amazing names that I just popped off. Briefly, walk me through the performances in this film.
Um, for me, for this one, I'm not as big a Paul Giamatti fan as you are, but this whole movie for me is him and his character. He's this like quirky police detective. He's really smart, but he's also like an everyman. And Giamatti does this great voice in the movie too, that is
Yeah.
just like a great accent and a great, like kind of gravelly, soft voice that I just love. And then, Edward Norton and Jessica Biel are just like the mysterious romantic couple that the story hinges on.
Such great chemistry, right?
Yes. And
I
it's
gotta
not
ask
really
you.
Edward Norton's wheelhouse. Like he's not really the
No.
romantic kind of guy.
I pointed out that Christopher Nolan is your favorite director. You've always championed him. So
Yes. I know the betrayal.
tell us why we should watch The Illusionist rather than The Prestige, because it deals with similar themes, and it was also released in 2006. These movies were kind of competing, and Amber Lewis is telling us The Illusionist is the call. Why is that?
I don't watch The Prestige very often, and because absolutely creeps me out. Like it is so intense and so spooky and mysterious, and I it just gives me the willies, and I it makes me uncomfortable to watch it. And this movie is just a delightful little romance with some magic, and I absolutely adore it. I love the atmosphere, I love the setting, I love everything about it. So I will watch The Prestige if I'm in that kind of creepy place, but this movie is more comforting and fun.
Let's talk about your second pick from 1982, Tootsie. We're staying in that romance vibe. This time it's a romantic satirical comedy directed by Sidney Pollack, who we've covered on the Film by podcast. This one stars Dustin Hoffman, Jessica Lange, Terry Garr, and one of my favorites, Dabney Coleman. Um, can you give us, because this is 82, some of our listeners might not be familiar with this movie. Can you give us a brief synopsis of the film and maybe talk about its impact on Hollywood?
This, in my opinion, is there's a handful of perfect movies, and this is one of them. It is an absolutely perfect romantic comedy, and it's about this actor who is struggling to get work, and his agent says, you're too difficult, you're too much of a pain in the neck. No one will hire you. And he dresses in drag and auditions for a soap opera and gets the job. And then has to decide, like, how long can I continue to pull off pretending to be a woman as I'm
And
falling in love with my co-star?
this kind of hit at a specific moment though, because I always think of Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari in Bosom Buddies.
Yes.
Hey, we got to have a place to stay, and this is a hotel for women, so we'll just dress in drag, and
Hmm.
comedic hijinks ensue. Kind of had its own little subgenre for a little while in the 80s, right? This
Yes.
yeah,
And also
fantastic.
this idea, like kind of along with Mr. Mom, as kind of women in the workplace and
Hmm.
what that world looks like.
Roger Ebert gave Tootsie 4 out of 4 stars. You said it's a perfect movie. I think Roger Ebert agrees with you. He said, quote, Tootsie is the kind of movie with a capital M that they used to make in the 1940s when they weren't afraid to mix up absurdity with seriousness, social comment with farce, and a little heartfelt tenderness right in there with the laughs. This movie gets you coming and going. The movie also manages to make some light-hearted but well-aimed observations about sexism. Amber, can you elaborate on his comments about sexism regarding to the film?
Well, a lot of the farce comes in, of course, with Dustin Hoffman, pretending to be a woman, but it's also his eyes are opened. He's kind of a misogynist at the beginning, and he's at this party, and he's like asking all these different girls out. He's just going through the party, getting phone numbers. And so,
Hmm.
and like, doesn't remember anybody's name. And there's one girl, like, he asked her for a number, and she's like, I just gave it to you a half an hour ago. Like these women don't really mean anything to him. And then when he goes undercover, so to speak, like Dabney Coleman is his boss and is just an absolute schmuck and is like pinching him on the butt and calling him sweetie and everything. And he sees how incredibly insulting and rude, and they just have to put up with this stuff because that's the way it is. And the men are all in control. And it's absolutely fascinating to watch him kind of realize that this is disgusting behavior. He doesn't realize that he does it himself, but
Hmm.
he
A little bit of an
realizes
eye
that it
opener.
should not continue.
Yeah. Your third pick, the oldest film on your list, also happens to be one of my newest favorites. Uh, Talking about The List of Adrian Messenger from 1963, an intriguing golden age mystery directed by John Huston, one of the all-time greats, starring a who's who of talent, including Kirk Douglas, George C. Scott, Gladys Cooper, Dana Winter, and I'm not even talking about the other notable stars providing cameos in this. by way of the film's clever gimmick. We actually covered this on our Patreon, thanks to a request by one of our members that you happen to know quite well. Uh,
Yes.
Please, listeners, check it out. It's here exclusively on Patreon. It was a request, member request. Amber, at the risk of spoiling our episode, our coverage on the list of Adrian Messenger, what is it about this film that keeps you coming back for repeated viewings year after year?
It's just a hoot. It's so much fun. Like George C. Scott is this great Sherlock Holmes kind of detective, and they're trying to figure out what connects all these murders that are occurring. What is similar about these men that's causing someone to kill them? And you're in the English countryside and they're going fox hunting, and it's, just very, like Downton Abbey with a mystery, and it's just delightful.
I know how you feel about remakes, but if there is a director working today that you believe capable of making a modern version of this film, and let's say they base it on the original 1959 novel written by Philip MacDonald, who would that director be?
I would pick another one of my favorites, Kenneth Branagh.
Oh
I like
yeah,
his Hercule Poirot remakes, and he
yes.
can certainly handle a large, talented cast. So I think he would have a lot of fun with it.
Hmm. Your fourth recommendation, uh, didn't know it. Now I'm very curious
I
to
know.
watch
I
it.
love recommending this movie because no one has ever heard of it.
From 1993, The Ballad of Little Joe. So we're talking about a Western inspired by the real life story of Josephine Monahan. It's directed by Maggie Greenwald, who, Amber, we haven't covered her before. We might, I've got that written down now. We might have to look at Maggie Greenwald. This
Ooh.
one stars Susie Amos, Ian McKellen, Bo Hopkins, and Carrie Snodgrass. Amber, it's on your list, so I know you don't have to use Wikipedia or, Google for this. Briefly tell us, who was Josephine Monahan?
So I love a good Western, and women are usually assigned specific roles in Westerns. And this one's a little unusual because Josephine Monahan pretended to be a boy like her entire life from the time she was about 14 until she died. There were maybe a handful of people that really knew who she was.
It becomes like a cattle baron, right?
Yeah, she in real life she worked like a ton of different jobs and was a lot more itinerant than she ends up being in the movie. But yeah, she was like a sheep herder and a cattle herder and worked in the mines and worked in a livery and just did all sorts, but just kind of kept to herself and um just looked like kind of a smaller guy.
Okay. Now, I haven't seen this film. You have, the history. Would you say the film succeeds in finding a good balance between entertainment and depicting the facts of Little Joe's life, for better or worse?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that it's one of the first Westerns that I remember seeing that showed how unpleasant life was for women at that time and the struggle. Um, and you kind of have to with the real life struggle of it is you can't make a movie of that. Like it's just it would be like 2 hours of just being miserable. So they, kind of pepper it in with a little romance and, kind of change the story up a little bit to sort of hypothesize how her life could have been. Is that there's not really a lot known about her also. But I think they do it in a way that's authentic and, kind of true to who she was, what we know.
All right. Four
And
movies
Susie
in,
Amos is just amazing.
4 movies in, a lot of romance, a lot of mystery, definitely some strong female performances. But your fifth pick, we're going to switch things up just slightly because we're talking about a a a great one here from 1987, Black Widow. Not to be confused with the MCU's Black
Yeah, no,
Widow.
not
This
that
is
one.
the neo noir thriller directed by Bob Rafelson, who is one of the founders of the new Hollywood movement. I didn't know if you knew that, Amber, from the
No,
1970s. Yeah, we've talked about a couple of those guys. Again, haven't talked about him. You're building the list for next season. I'll tell you that with
right?
some of these picks. This film stars Deborah Winger and Teresa Russell. We even get a brief appearance by Dennis Hopper towards the beginning. This one is a menacing game of cat and mouse between Winger and Russell. I have to ask, which character do you find yourself relating to, or which character do you find yourself rooting for?
Um,
Sub question there.
right?
Who
I
are you in
think
this movie, Amber, and who are you rooting for?
I think the reality is I'm more of a Deborah Winger kind of person.
Yeah.
But Teresa Russell is amazing. And to be someone who is so, you don't want to be evil, but she's very clever. She's very smart. She
Mhm.
is gorgeous and very sexy. So, she's kind of like a Bond villain. Like, who wouldn't want to
Teresa Russell
have that kind of fun?
in 1987 is kind of the blueprint for Sharon Stone in 92, I think,
Yes, I
right?
agree.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm kind of wondering, you watch this and you're like, where's Teresa Russell? What happened? And I'm almost wondering, did Sharon Stone sneak in and just take all the Teresa Russell roles when
It
she
could
when she
be.
hit the scene? Now that the film is nearly 40 years old, which two actresses would you like to see in a remake? Follow-up question. Who are you hiring to direct this film between Patty Jenkins and Catherine Bigelow?
Um, the actresses I would like to see, but I don't know who I want to play who, but I love them so much. Saoirse Ronan and Florence Pugh.
That's perfect casting.
Like I
That
adore
is
them both so much, but I don't know who would be
100%.
who. Either one could be
Oh,
either one.
they could be, but having just seen the Thunderbolts and watching Pugh play Yelena Belova,
Hmm.
she could totally be Teresa Russell.
That's what I was kind
Just
of thinking too.
changing up her identity, bumping off these rich old guys here,
Yep.
stealing their fortunes. That would be great. Who's directing this for you? Is this a Patty Jenkins movie, or is it a Catherine Bigelow movie?
I think strictly because of Wonder Woman 1984, it's a Patty Jenkins movie. Because the relationship between Wonder Woman and Cheetah in that movie is perfectly balanced with them being friends and them being, enemies but Wonder Woman wants to help her and I love that whole dynamic that she created in that movie. So,
It's a trick question. There was no wrong answer,
right?
and yet you gave us the right answer. I don't,
It's a voice of reason. I don't know what to
you're the
say.
voice of reason. All right, Amber, do you have time? Those are your five.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play detective here based on these choices, and you kind of threw one in there. I mean, you threw me a couple heaters, you threw me a curveball, but you threw one right over the plate to let me knock this one out of the park with my answer. I'm gonna say what connects these movies. These are what I would call movies with mom. Are these movies that you watched with your mom, like growing up? Like these are movies like your mom was like, "Hey," because your mom has
No.
excellent taste. We know
I
this
mean,
about her.
I mean, we probably have watched
Okay,
these
I thought these were
together
like
at some point. I don't
I
know
would
that
have
she's
thought
ever
these were
seen The
like
Ballad
Amber.
of
Watch
Little
this.
Joe. I'm not sure.
Really? Okay. So that is not
Um,
what connects them. I was
no.
going movies with mom.
No, I
What
thought
what
it was
could
so obvious. And so when you
okay
said that, I was like, oh, he's way off base.
okay. I correct me. What connects these five movies? Why did you choose these five?
They are movies with disguises,
It was there again. Adrian Messenger was like the
right?
one where I was like,
I
oh,
thought
this
that
is
was the one that was like totally going to give it away.
yeah,
The Illusionist is the kind of the outlier. There's only one scene where really disguising is involved, but it's such
yeah.
a great scene
It
that I
is.
love that moment.
You got me.
Um, I got you. I can't believe
Well,
it. I thought
I am no Hercule Poirot, so uh, do you have time? Can I hit you with five questions if we're super fast?
yeah, yeah.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna call because I don't want you to think about your answers. I just want you to shoot from the hip, kind of like Han Solo. You know what? Let's just call it the Han Solo 5. You know, because he was always shooting first, asking questions
Yes,
later. So I'm going to
did
ask you to
shoot
do
first.
likewise. Yeah, I'm going to ask. He did shoot first. I'm
100%.
going to ask you to do likewise with your responses, and hopefully, like Han, you can do this in less than 12 parsecs. All right.
Okay.
All right. Here we go, Amber. What was the first movie that made you fall in love with movies?
Jaws.
Amber, it's the mid 80s. Thanos is about to snap half of your beloved toys out of existence. Take one look at your Barbies, Cabbage Patch Kids, Care Bears, and My Little Ponies. Which two toy lines is young Amber Lewis saving?
Well, I didn't really have many of those, but I would keep my Star Wars toys and my strawberry shortcake toys.
Wouldn't be Amber Lewis if she wasn't breaking the rules and just offering other questions. I should have asked you that. You could have been playing with anything.
Right?
Amber, you claim Christopher Nolan is your favorite director. What is his best film?
Interstellar.
If you could spend a day on any film set from any moment in time, which film would you choose?
Rear Window.
Oh, great answer. That set is gorgeous.
I know, right?
Ah, Amber, on the Film by podcast, we specifically cover underrated films by Hollywood's talented directors. So, with this stipulation in mind, which film would you love to do an episode on, knowing that we most likely never will?
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Amber, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for the movie recommendations. And thank you for all that you do on the A Film by podcast. This has been Staff Picks. And until next time, please be kind and rewind.